And we're back here, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, 215-204-9449 is the number if you want to call and hang with us. Great segment right there just a moment ago with Temple cornerback Abdul Smith as the Owls have National Signing Day tomorrow. Now let's welcome in a man from New York just like myself, and that is the 49ers play-by-play man, Ted Robinson. Ted, Zach Gelb, Haley Condon on WHIP Radio. How are you?
Zach, nice to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you on as well. And I was in New Orleans all of last week down on Bourbon Street at Radio Row at the Convention Center. Did you enjoy New Orleans as you saw your 49ers play coming up on last Sunday?
Well, yeah, I mean, we enjoyed New Orleans. It's a great city. It's probably the best city, and I'm saying that with the full knowledge that the Bay Area is poised to get a Super Bowl back in the new 49er Stadium, but it's hard to envision a better host city for the Super Bowl. Of course, the power outage was an embarrassment, and it will hopefully force New Orleans to address, as San Francisco's had to do, those kind of power issues. And I thought it was notable yesterday. Roger Goodell said that outage would not affect New Orleans' attempt to host a future game.
Well, I love New Orleans. The food was great. Irene's was stellar at that restaurant. Radio Row was fantastic as well, being my fourth one down there at the Super Bowl. But you're from New York just like myself. If I'm not mistaken, you grew up at Queens. Are you excited for this New York Super Bowl? Are you excited to see how it's going to play down in a cold weather city?
Yeah, I think just gauging folks around the 49ers, Zach, I'm probably in a minority when I do think it's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing a Super Bowl. Look, the Super Bowl could become the permanent domain of New Orleans and Miami, and once in a while get moved to a Phoenix. We like to think in San Francisco with the new stadium, Dallas, Houston, places like that. But you can't exclude half the league either. So there's nothing wrong with having the game in New York. We know that. Is it going to be 80 degrees? No, we know that. Is it going to be 10 below? No, that won't be the case either. The New York winters by most people's standards are fairly moderate, just like yours in Philadelphia. And, yeah, people are going to have to wear overcoats. They'll have to put a scarf on. Hopefully the game won't take 4 hours and whatever. I mean, it felt like a college game the other night. My God, it was so long and so tiring and exhausting. But overall, no, I think this is a good thing for the league to do. And look, people of New York, New Jersey put out a new stadium for two NFL teams. They should have a chance to host a Super Bowl.
We're talking to Ted Robinson, the play-by-play voice of the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers lose Super Bowl 47 by a score of 34-31. Ray Lewis goes off to retirement with the second Super Bowl ring as they host the Lombardi Trophy, as they actually have the parade going on right now in Baltimore. Let's get to the big no call of this game, and that was the non-holding call. Take me back to that. Did you think it was the right call by the refs?
Are you talking about the fourth down pass, Zach?
Yes.
Yeah. Mike Pereira probably had the best objective opinion of it, where he said, borderline play, tough play, good, no call. I would probably tend to think that's the better view of it. Jim Harbaugh's still not happy about it. I can tell you that personally on the trip back to San Francisco yesterday, and Jim will probably never get over it when it's a play like that. Now, of course, that play does not put the 49ers in the end zone. It just prolongs their drive and gives them another chance to score. Having said that, it was an interesting sequence of plays down there at the end that the 49ers will dissect for a long, long time. And really the most significant play, guys, was probably third down, because the 49ers called a run play for Kaepernick that looked like it could work. It looked like it was going to be a play that put him in the end zone, but they didn't get the play off in time, and the sideline called timeout to prevent a 5-yard penalty. And now on the redo of third down, they could not come back with the same play call. And the one that did get called, Kaepernick probably didn't make the best read, threw the ball to Crabtree in the right flat rather than Delaney Walker, the tight end who was open on a stick route in the end zone. And that will be the kind of nightmare I think that the 49ers will live with for a long time.
It's going to be a tough one to swallow. It's going to be a long offseason. I wasn't that big of a fan of the play calling down the stretch, and that's where I think the 49ers choked the game. But you also have to look back at this. The 49ers, throughout this whole course of the playoffs, they were slow starters. They didn't get the Kaepernick threw that pick six up against the Packers. They went down big in the NFC Championship game, and they didn't even show up until that blackout going up against the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Why do you think this team continues to have slow starts?
Well, that is, I think, a very valid point. Play calling is the easiest thing in the world, and for all of us to sit back and second guess. It's very simple and oftentimes lazy, and that's going to be a problem that's going to follow the 49er coaching staff after this game. Is the way it ended those last 4 plays. They will be subject to months and months of second guessing. Now, the better question is the start. 2 games in a row where they started slowly, and the first play of the game was a terrible harbinger for the 49ers. It was a play that they had predetermined as the first play of the game. It was a play they had rehearsed 10 to 12 times in the days leading into the game, and then to have an alignment issue that oftentimes officials let slide or warn a team about. In this case, the official chose to throw the flag on the first play, and it was a 25-yard penalty. That play negated a 20-yard gain and ended up, shifting field position radically at the start of the game and gave Baltimore a short field, which they, to their credit, took full advantage of. But, that's a definite issue for the 49ers. Overall, after a wonderful season, the 49ers do have one, I think, area that they need to clean their game up in, and that is penalties. They just committed too many penalties, and not necessarily penalties of commission, but penalties like that, like this one we're talking on the first play, where it's just an alignment issue. That needs to be fixed for them going forward.
And also the secondary didn't play all that great in the Super Bowl. Can you see Harbaugh addressing that in this offseason?
Well, the 49ers are going to have a ton. I think they have 14 draft picks. So the draft will be big for them. I think the overriding issue for the 49ers, their secondary did give up some big pass plays to awfully good players in the championship game in the Super Bowl. I think the bigger question for the 49ers is addressing depth on their defense, and especially up front. I think the defensive line is the first position the 49ers need to address, not for starters, but for depth and youth. Justin Smith will be 34 next year. Isaac Sopoaga, the nose tackle, is a free agent. Ray McDonald is now, I think, 7 years in the league. And the 49er defense plays, they substitute less than any team in the league. They need to have some depth, and I think defensive line will be the first position they look at in that regard.
Going back to the Kaepernick interception, I saw Romanowski said after the game on the postgame show, as we're talking to Ted Robinson, who's the San Francisco 49ers play-by-play man, I saw Romanowski said that Randy Moss alligator armed it. What was your reaction going back to that play of the Kaepernick interception? Do you think Moss could have tried to make an effort on that ball?
Well, his ball was thrown way too high.
I agree.
And it was just an overthrow. I don't know why. Don't know if there's anything more complicated to say than that. It was difficult because Kaepernick had not thrown an interception since the first drive of the Green Bay playoff game, which Sam Shields returned for a touchdown. So this was the first pick he had thrown since then. There was just a brief period in that second quarter where I thought Kaepernick wobbled slightly, and the 49er team wobbled slightly. And it was one of the rare times since Kaepernick took over as quarterback that I felt that the overall weight of everything, the weight of the situation, and the fact the game wasn't going the 49ers' way kind of got to him a little bit. And I'll also tell you that it shows you something about Kaepernick and the 49er team, that the greatest deficit ever overcome in a Super Bowl had been 10 points. The 49ers came back from 22 and got within 5 yards. Actually got within 2 yards of tying the game in the two-point conversion, and then 5 yards of taking the lead. It does say a lot about the team, because I would venture to guess that many more teams than not, in the way that game was going Sunday night, end up losing by 35 or 40.
Many people aren't talking about this, but I thought a crucial part of this game, because momentum was starting to swing all over to the 49ers side, was once when Ray Rice fumbled the football and the 49ers were only able to get 3 points. It would have been so crucial there if they could have went down there and got 7 points.
Yeah, absolutely right. That was, to me, one of the biggest stories of the game was red zone. That's an area the 49ers offense has had to work on the last 2 years. And red zone was big in this game. The 49ers had 6 red zone trips and scored twice. And to win a Super Bowl, you need to have a better score percentage than that. Now, again, having said that, they were going against the second-best red zone defense in the league this year. Baltimore excelled at that. And they won the Super Bowl in large part because of that. Your point about that fumble, absolutely. I mean, it was only the third quarter of the game, but it would have been a third straight touchdown in a short period of time had the 49ers converted that. And it really would have swung momentum dramatically going to the fourth quarter. I don't know that the 49ers end up playing from behind as they had to in the fourth quarter if they're able to score off that turnover. And again, it's what Baltimore did in the first half. When the 49ers turned it over twice, Baltimore turned those into scores.
WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, 215-204-9449 is the call number. Zach Gelb here with you, as well as Haley Condon, talking to Ted Robinson, the play-by-play voice of the San Francisco 49ers. Ted, two more questions right before we let you run. David Akers, we all know him very well here in Philadelphia. I would have to imagine he's not going to be back with this club next year.
Yeah, that'll be one of the questions that gets addressed pretty quickly here. I think Zach Akers has a contract, and the questions become, I think, twofold. One is, where does the salary cap situation leave the 49ers? They're bumping up tightly against the cap. And secondly, do you find a replacement, as other teams did? You know, the St. Louis Rams are the greatest example. They let go of veteran kicker and Josh Brown, and they went out and found a kid on a campus in an obscure college who ended up becoming the strongest-legged kicker we've seen in the league ever, in Greg Zuerlein. Baltimore obviously had their agony with Cundiff last year. They went out and found a kid, an undrafted kid, Tucker, that had a good year for him. The 49ers may well go down that road because it was tough. And it's funny, I thought Akers was imperative in the first half that he have a field goal try, because the 49ers needed to know, and Akers needed to know if he was back. And he missed on the crucial one. Then, because of a flag by the Ravens for running into him, he got a second chance and made it. And I still think that miss would have left things very uneasy, Zach, had the 49ers had to run Akers back out in the fourth quarter to make an essential kick. Turned out that wasn't the case. But the 49ers played the last 6 to 8 weeks of the year not being sure about their kicker. And you can't do that. You can't do it. The kicker runs on the field now 45 yards in the NFL. The team has to know he's going to make that. That's how high I think the bar has been set for place kicking.
Maybe they look at a Temple kid by the name of Brandon McManus. He wins a plethora of awards, Big East Special Teams Player of the Week each and every single week. So maybe they do look and try to turn their way to Brandon McManus. Like you said, try to find someone through the draft. But you look at the quarterback situation for this team, it's clearly going to be Colin Kaepernick's going to be the guy. Now the question is, what do you do with Alex Smith? I think you have to trade him, and if you don't get any takers, which I think you will get a taker for Alex Smith, then you may have to release him. But how quickly can you expect this team to move to try to trade or even cut Alex Smith?
Well, I would think, Zach, in the next month, the 49ers will make their decision and then act on that. And I personal opinion, I expect that the 49ers will do everything possible to trade Alex for two reasons. One is to accommodate him. Alex Smith, and I did have a chance to speak with him briefly yesterday, but Alex Smith is still young. He's only 28 years old, and he wants to play. And therefore, the 49ers, I think, will accommodate that wish. Because the draft is not a good quarterback draft this year, teams that need to address that position are going to have to find other ways, and a trade is going to be an easy way. So if you're one of the handful of teams that has an obvious quarterback, the Kansas City Chiefs jump right to the forefront, then Alex Smith becomes a natural target. And the 49ers may, for the first time, believe it or not, have a market. Alex Smith basically had no market as a free agent last year, coming off a 13-3 season. But there will be, I believe, a market for him this year. So I expect that there will be a trade before the roster bonus deadline. He'll be due a roster bonus, and I'm sure this will get done before that.
Ted, right before we let you go, I know you are a Notre Dame alumni. Give me your reaction to the Manti Te'o situation. Do you believe Te'o? I believe at the end of the day, he was duped by this whole thing, found out in December, right before the Heisman, and just didn't know what to do with it and how to come public with this. But what's your reaction on Manti Te'o?
Well, I think it's sad. The whole thing is sad, clearly. It's sad that it impacted whether, and I have no idea, I know nothing more than anyone else knows about the story outside. It's sad that it impacted clearly his play in the BCS game there. He was a total non-factor. If Manti Te'o's story is true, it's sad that he was allowed to be drawn in, or he allowed himself to be drawn into such a hurtful situation. Personally, I don't care. And I have no issue with Manti Te'o. I just think this is one of our collective cultural issues that we make something out of really a kind of a sad, almost pathetic story, which whichever version of it is accurate. It's pathetic to me no matter what. And whether who's telling the truth, I'll be honest with you, Zach, I just don't care.
Ted, thanks so much for coming on today. I appreciate the time and enjoy the tennis that will be coming up soon. I know you are a big tennis guy, so thanks so much for giving us a few minutes of your time today.
My pleasure, Zach. Take care.